My great-grandfather, in founding the Rockefeller Foundation, founded it with the mission of promoting the well-being of mankind throughout the world. His son, who took the mantle of philanthropy onto his shoulders in a very dutiful way, and he created his own set of values, which are carved in stone at Rockefeller Plaza, that every right has a responsibility, every opportunity an obligation, every possession a duty. That was really the beginning of the written word of values that were translated down through the family. Our own generation, the cousins, has extended and elaborated on those values. We feel that we need to be responsible stewards of wealth for improving the common good. And some of the values that we share in promoting the common good are nurture family through the generations, provide safe environments for open dialogue, respect diversity, consider every topic within the larger context, think long-term, serve effectively within your communities, support the value of leadership and public service, and finally, don't take ourselves too seriously.
The transmission of values, and it gets back to my parents, who were always very involved with organizations where they had relationships with excellent professionals, and we learn a lot from each other. And that's a hallmark of Rockefeller Philanthropy, is having brilliant people around us that pick up our game and make sure that we grow.
In my 20s, I ran into Norman Cousins, who had a great impact on me in creating the Institute for the Advancement of Health. After 7 years of working with the Institute for the Advancement of Health, part of the subject matter had evolved into the field that is now called emotional intelligence. I think it's essential for people to understand themselves and how to communicate appropriately to others if we're really going to be effective in this world. And it counts whether you're a kid in the playground or whether you're the chairman of a board of a major corporation. Many of the members of my generation have been very entrepreneurial in their approach to philanthropy. And part of the reason for that is that whereas great-grandfather could do it all on his own finances that he had earned and through the creation of the Rockefeller Foundation, my grandfather found that it was too much of a burden to do it all alone, but then he was glad that he had his 6 children to help him, and that is how the Brothers Fund came into existence. My generation created the Rockefeller Family Fund, and it was a way for all of us to come together. And today, we use these vehicles as collective vehicles for philanthropy. There's probably closer to 100 organizations that have been created by members of the family. And it's not that they only create organizations, they also serve on many other wonderful boards. Through the help of the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, we can look at what other good projects are happening in the world and how can we best leverage our more limited resources than our parents or grandparents to make a difference in the world.
What interests me about philanthropy is the idea that you can see a need, identify it, and try and bring people together to help solve the problem. It's not just responding to grants, it's saying, well, you know, here's a problem, what can we do about it? We're trying to figure out what people were interested in and what projects people could come together to work on. And so we did a poll. 2 issues that came out of it were education and the environment, and we wanted to get a hands-on experience doing a small sort of advocacy project ourselves. So a bunch of us came together and we decided that we're going to focus on community gardens that were being threatened around the city by development.
How are we as a family passing these values down? I've described a little bit of it in terms of how the institutions and organizations evolved, but there's another more personal way that has more impact on why our family is together today. There are now about 150 of us, just the blood relatives, and then the nice thing is that we include our in-laws in all of our philanthropic endeavors.
I wasn't born a Rockefeller, but I've enjoyed this legacy so much because all of the passions that I've had as a young person and a young adult before I even met my husband are so spot on in the legacy that this family has given me the privilege to be a part of.
Some families feel they want just to have their blood members of the family, but we have included them all, always, and there are a number of ways that we do this and why we have a strong affection for each other and a strong desire to see each other. We have meetings for all generations twice a year, once in December, once in June, and most of us attend. The Christmas family luncheon is in addition to that. When I was little, we used to initially go and have Christmas lunch with grandfather in his apartment here in New York City. And then as the family grew, we would go to what has become kind of the family seat, which is the Playhouse in Tarrytown that grandfather built for the generations to follow. Those are part of the ritual, the structure of how we get together. Within that structure, there are several other facets that I think have influenced how we treat each other, how we act in other meetings, and in how we think about how to do good in the world. One of those is the simple act of making toasts in such a gracious and warm way, and it's usually just as you're finishing your main course and before the dessert comes. There have been several other rituals that were created by members of my generation, and one is a ceremony called Passages. In June, we all get together and we always have dinner by generation on Friday nights, and it's just personal time, just time to catch up. Without that, you really lose the soul of the family. You have to find personal ways to connect. The next day, after all the business meetings are over, there is a time in the late afternoon where we celebrate the birth passages of each person when they reach a critical birthday. They have the opportunity to be recognized, not because they were a senator, not because they got in the New York Times 5 times this or 100 times this year, whatever, but just for who they are as human beings. And so they are asked if they would like to be presented to the family, and if so, who would they like to present them. So there's a lot of nice free choice in this, and they're given a rose. It's just a very simple ritual, and their pictures taken with the person that presented them, and everyone claps. The final ritual I'll tell you about, which is the intergenerational dialogue. And it's a really lovely way for the new members that are coming of age, 18-year-olds and older, to come and join. And we sit in a circle, and we have each of us about 2 minutes to go around and share whatever we feel like sharing. And it can be from, as simple as, I just started college this fall, to I have just found a new love in my life. It's whatever you feel like saying. There are very strict rules. You're not allowed to comment on what they say. You're not allowed to give advice. It's a simple fact of listening. And wouldn't the world be better if more of us just listened? It's a value that's getting passed on, that good listening is a way of doing good philanthropy. And from that, you can begin to work as a we, as opposed to as a me.